What is up, everybody out there in the audio sphere? Welcome once again to your weekly edition of Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network. We're live on YouTube. We're live on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. And we are excited, booming, ready to go for this weekend's exciting series against the New York Mets. Uh, really hot streak from the Phillies, a little bit of an off, six straight losses for the New York Mets. They suddenly find themselves tied neck and neck at 45 and 30 to lead the National League East. Thank you, everybody. Once again, my name is Kyle Fisher. You can find me right here on socials at Kyle Fisher45 here on X. You can also find me there on that same handle on Blue Sky, Kyle Fisher Media over on YouTube. Kyle Fisher45 on Instagram. But more importantly, make sure you're following at Philadelphia SN. All of our content from our stellar Phillies team will be live. Every single game we have you covered. Our guy Sean Nestor put out a nice preview breaking down this weekend's matchup for the Phillies team. That is live over on PSN. I'll have a piece coming out within the hour breaking down the history between the Mets and Phillies, because not only are we excited, the nation is excited about this wonderful matchup between the Phillies and the Mets this weekend. 3 nationally televised games. Tonight's game on Apple TV, tomorrow's game on Fox, and of course the finale on Sunday Night Baseball over on ESPN. Carl Ravitch will be on the call as usual. But before we get too deep into the Mets talk, because that is obviously going to be the majority of what we cover here today on Alley Talk. Like I said, give our guy Sean Nestor at Sean Nestor, ShaunNestor, a follow. He will be in the booth for us tonight, bringing you all the action. He's working on a piece about Kyle Schwarber reaching 10 years service time. He'll be speaking to players and coaches before the game. He'll have you every tweet for every inning along the way. He will have you covered. Today, we have our guy Chris Babos in the booth tomorrow. And then, of course, Sean capping us off on Sunday Night Baseball for that finale of Phillies Mets. Before we dive into it, like I said, because that is going to be the majority of our coverage today, I wanted to take a look back at the week that was for the Phillies. Big action for Philadelphia. They just finished a 3-1 series victory over the Miami Marlins, winning 2-1 last night. Kyle Schwarber broke out, finally getting that big home run that we had been waiting for in June to give the team the 2-1 lead, but they got things done along the way. Matt Kemp showing off, playing some first and third. We may see him in left field soon, according to comments from Rob Thompson. Keeping his bat in the lineup has been exciting. We'll have Buddy Kennedy up this weekend. He can play some first base while Bryce Harper still recovers. One thing that Sean did focus on in his piece over at Philly Sports Network, if you want to check that out, is he did talk about how both of these teams, despite being in the lead in the National League East, are pretty banged up at the moment. So that will be something to watch this weekend as well. Yes, of course, we know that both of these teams are really strong rosters all the way through. The big question will be, what do they look like once they get some of these pieces back, right? The Mets have a lot of injuries in their starting rotation. Phillies are missing Aaron Nola and, of course, Bryce Harper, the leader of the team. So what will they look like this weekend versus what will they look like in a few months? Time will tell. But breaking down the week that was, so last time we spoke, there was a lot of worry with this Phillies roster, this Phillies team. They had just gotten done. We met last Friday on the 13th. They had just won a series against Chicago, but that was after losing 5 in a row. They went on a nasty 2-10 stretch there, losing to Milwaukee, losing the finale to Atlanta, getting swept by Milwaukee, losing 2 of 3 in Toronto, getting swept by the Pirates. My man Jason Martinez over on Fox 29. I was with he and Breland Moore on the Fantastic Sports Show Tuesday night, and Jason was ready to give up on the squad after getting swept by the Pirates. That's how rough things are in Pittsburgh at the moment. But The Phillies, this roster's too good to be down in the dumps and stay down there. They would come back home, face off against those Chicago Cubs, the NL Central leading Chicago Cubs, and take 2 of 3 there. They would then sweep Toronto over the weekend before going down to Miami and taking 3 of 4, taking care of business the way that they should. So an exciting week. A few things here and there that changed and switched up for the Phillies. The offense started rolling again. Maybe not in the most dramatic way, but you have games where he scored 7, 8, and 11 runs, taking care of business down in Miami, scraping by, getting it done with small ball instead of the long ball for most of the time. But we did have that home run from Schwarber. Trey Turner continues to be one of the best hitters in all of baseball. He's looking like the guy that everybody thought the Phillies were getting when they signed him initially. I want to bring up something from Paul Hembo. He is a wonderful addition to. He works with Mike and Mike over at ESPN. Wonderful addition to Buster Olney's crew on the Baseball Tonight podcast. He said that he's leading in WOBA, he's leading in hits, he's one of the best shortstops in every offensive category across the board. So Trey Turner in that leadoff spot, really taking off, really looking like the guy that the Phillies and Phillies fans thought that they were getting after that exciting World Baseball Classic before he came in to play his first game in red pinstripes. Excuse me. Yeah, big win down in Miami, big rebound from that rough stretch. And that's going to happen to good teams. I mean, they had a really rough stretch last year in July and ended up winning the division still. The Yankees, who ended up going to the World Series, had a really rough July and August, and they still led their division the entire way and ended up in the World Series. So a little early summer swoon, even if the Phillies are used to being explosive in June. Maybe not as explosive as you would have hoped to kick the month off, but they are right where they want to be once again, leading the National League East. Some stellar starting pitching performances as of late. We see Ranger Suarez has been nothing short of dominant since his return from the injured list. And I want to bring up, I tweeted this out the other day, but I want to bring up how good he's been as of late. Let's look at Ranger Suarez. Sorry, didn't have this ready, but the Ranger Suarez, after that first outing, he has gone. So this is his last, 8 starts now. 7 innings, no runs. 7 innings, 3 runs. 6 2/3, no runs. 6 innings, no runs. 6 innings, no runs. 7 innings, 2 earned. 7 innings, no earned. And then this past week in Miami, another 7 innings, 1 run. Over his last 8, he's thrown 53 2/3 innings, surrendering just 7 earned runs in that time. That is a 1.17 ERA. He, Zach Wheeler, Chris Sanchez, all 3 of them, and Mick Abel, let's add him in. If they were all qualified, Ranger and Mick need a little bit more since Mick got called up not too long ago and Ranger missed the first month plus of the season. But if all 4 of them were to qualify with their current ERAs, they would all rank in the top 12 in the majors in earned run average. That's how good this starting rotation has been as of late. Jesus Luzardo, we were talking Cy Young for him before that rough stretch of 20 earned over 2 starts. Had a nice bounce back against the Cubs. Not so great against Miami. We'll have to see how he works. He battled through. They don't win the game, but not necessarily due to his fault. It wasn't him causing anything. But the big thing for Luzardo will be how do they manage his innings? What does he look like in the next few starts? I think that you can't judge the full bounce back for one. You also can't judge a full collapse by the next. So we'll have to see how he looks. But just despite Taijuan Walker no longer being in the rotation, despite the long-term injury to Aaron Nola, this club continues to ride strong starting pitching. It almost doesn't matter who they put out there. This team is riding on that starting pitching. But one thing they're going to need to do is find a way to generate some offense outside of Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper being hurt. When Kyle Schwarber, if Harper's out of the lineup and Schwarber is on a cold streak, that he's allowed to have with how good he was and how much he carried the offense to start the season. They need to find offense elsewhere. And one of those places that people were hoping to find some offense, and we have a comment here from John Fisher, uh, the team can't just count on the occasional Bryson Stott 3-run home run to win the game. And John, you're so right. They need to get consistency up and down that lineup. One thing that Topper's tried to do, he's made adjustments. They tried Stott at the top of the lineup. He's seen a career high 4.9 pitches per at bat this season. He has that ability to wear on pitchers, but some of those foul balls, some of those extended at bats need to start turning into hits. It wasn't working out. They moved him back down in the lineup. Nice to see him get off of the schneid, get a nice 3-run shot down in Miami. But you're right. They cannot rely on Bryson Stott having a once in a while power surge to carry this team. They need to get it done as a unit. And we'll see what they can do against this strong Mets pitching staff, even though they're dealing with some injuries this weekend. Taking a look at the team overall, looking at the hitters and how they've done against starting pitching. That's one thing that's really stuck out to me recently is their struggles against starting pitching, right? Miami has some decent young arms in there. Edward Cabrera looked pretty good. They have some other good arms there. Apologies for the technical difficulties. They have some other good young arms, but the consistency just has not been there. One thing to keep an eye on, they're really middle of the pack when it comes uh, to taking advantage of starters. Their slugging percentage against starting pitchers is still only 397. Yes, one of the ways you can get a starting pitcher out of the game is by wearing them down, and Bryson Stott can do that. But they have a lot of free swingers. So for every Stott who's seeing a lot of pitches and Schwarber who's seeing a lot of pitches, and when Harper's in the lineup, he sees a lot. For every opportunity and every guy in the lineup that has it, they seem to have another guy who kind of erases that. Alec Boehm is a free swinger, swings early and often. Nick Castellanos, his bread and butter is swinging early and often. He does not want you to get ahead of him and be able to take advantage of him with those low and outside breaking pitches. He is susceptible to them, and he knows himself. So if you're going to attack him in the zone, he's going to attack you right back. But they do need some of these guys to start finding holes, finding consistency. Alec Boehm is a perfect example, right? Early in the season, there was a lot of fans telling me that they were done with Alec Boehm, that they weren't ready for him they were ready to move on from him rather. But he has been one of the hottest hitters in all of baseball as of late. So add him to what Trey Turner has been doing, Alec Boehm finding himself a little bit higher up in the lineup again, and you really start to see what this team could look like with Alec Boehm as a figurehead. We do need more from guys like Bryson Stott. They do need more from the outfield, right? Brandon Marsh has been hitting well, but they really still haven't figured out center field. Kepler's shown some moments, but they're even looking at Otto Kemp potentially splitting time with Max Kepler out there in left field, an unproven outfielder in Matt Kemp. The kid's been good while he's been up here. We'll have to see what he looks like once Bryce Harper returns. Now, obviously, that's another concern for the Phillies is how quickly can they get him back, but they need to survive without it. Record shows that they've been able to do that. Since they signed him in 2019, they do have a winning record when he's not in the lineup. However, that winning percentage is much greater when he is in the lineup. Cannot rely. These guys do need to continue to pick it up like they have in the past. Let's take a look at what he's done lately. June, just in the month of June, 17 games. Alec Boehm hitting 358 with a 493 slug. That's good for an 895 OPS. 3 doubles, 2 homers, 12 ribbies just in the month. So really, really impressive stuff from Alec Boehm as of late. He hit 260, he hit 213 in April, but he's followed that up with a 324 and a 358 batting average the 2 following months. Really doing some damage. Hopefully he can turn some of these singles into doubles and homers. We know that he's not a big home run hitter. I'm totally fine with that. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Alec Boehm and the lack of power. I'm not too worried about that overall if the rest of the expected power hitters are hitting. If Castellanos is going to be mostly a singles hitter like he's been for the majority of this season. Can they rely on that? What's Bryce Harper's power going to look like when he comes back? Can Kyle Schwarber stay among the league leaders in home runs all season long? We know that he can, but will he be able to as the primary source of offense and power in this lineup? If you don't have a lot of power around him, it's really easy for pitching staffs to avoid him and pitch around him and try and force him to get himself out while other guys aren't showing the type of power that they might normally, uh, and not even power in the traditional home run sense, right? A lot of doubles that you would normally see from Nick Castellanos, maybe not as much force behind them, landing for small singles. Love what he's been able to do. Base hits are base hits. The team has to adapt that pass the baton mentality. Fall in love with the team, as Topper has preached in the past. They really need to get back to doing that as a unit, and we've seen that a little bit as of late. Maybe not as much as you would have liked to in Miami, but in that Toronto series and that Chicago series, a lot of offense generated without the long ball, which is what you want to see from a team, regardless of who's in the lineup and who's not. That's something that you want to see from a team who has World Series aspirations. It's the thing that they focused on the most in the offseason, according to Rob Thompson. Generating offense in other ways. The mission for Trey Turner this year was don't focus on the power. Heck, the guy hasn't even hit a home run at Citizens Bank Park this season. He's got 9 homers, all of them on the road. We'll see if that trend continues over the weekend, as I'm sure that the excitement level will be at a raucous level down at Citizens Bank Park. Just a reminder for those, if you're going down to the game tonight, not only is a nationally televised game on Apple TV, so just after 7 o'clock, but there is some extra traffic down in the area. The FIFA, it's like the World Cup, something local World Cup, Club World Cup. I think that's what it's called. They have a game down there today at 2 o'clock ongoing right now. Some events down at Xfinity Live, both for the soccer and prepping for the Phillies game tonight. So there's going to be some extra traffic down there. Make sure you plan accordingly. Club World Cup from Kev. Thank you for the confirmation. The FIFA Club World Cup. I probably called it something ridiculous, Kev. One of my friends who's a big soccer guy, Kev. I'll be down there for the next round of Club World Cup play, selling some beers in the stands for Aramark. So if this is your first time tuning in, I've been down at the stadium since 2010 as a beer vendor before transitioning into a more professional reporter role down at the Citizens Bank Park. But I'm still slinging the beers over at the link where that Club World Cup is taking place. So make sure that if you're headed down, be patient, take your time, and know that there's a little bit of extra juice down there at the moment. If you do go down early, I know we're on PSN, but you've caught me before. If you've seen me on Fox Sports, The Gambler, Fox PHL, The Gambler, the crew over there, Sean Brace, Luke Arcaney, they'll be down there doing a live stream from Xfinity Live right when this one is done. So if you want to continue the Phillies talk, hop on over to their stream and make sure you continue the conversation talking Phils with those guys. Like I said, I was on with Sean earlier this week, and we talked about something big that happened in the Miami series that I want to get to in a moment. Big moment. We talked about Nick Castellanos for a moment. I don't want to from Jim Ackley. Oh yeah, baby, we love that extra juice. You got to get the juices flowing, Ackley. We know what it's all about. Got to keep everything flowing, keep the energy up, and rise up, man. Get some excitement down there at the sports complex this weekend. Huge series for the Phillies, obviously, with some soccer sprinkled in. While we're on the topic of, before I switch over to the Nick Castellanos conversation, and we're not going to stay there very long because it's been beaten to death across the board. But before we do that, while I'm talking live streams, yes, when you are done here, make sure you hop over to Sean Brace, Luke Arcaney over on Fox PHL, The Gambler. They'll be streaming from 3 to 5 outside of Xfinity Live. I'm not sure which restaurant, but you can catch them. Sean, he stands out. You'll hear his voice before you see the speaker. So make sure you give those guys a shout. And when you're done there, go get yourself some food, get yourself a drink, get replenished, and get right back here to PSN's YouTube channel. Our guys will be doing the Flippin' the Birds there's live stream, Flipping the Birds, our Eagles coverage. Brian and Morgan talking about everything that they've heard out of Eagles OTAs so far. Noise around the budding star, Jalix Hunt. Are the Eagles set at pass rusher? Is there another move along the way for the defense? Make sure you come back here in just a few hours to give the guys at Flipping the Birds a listen. So this Nick Castellanos conversation, it's not worth getting into much longer. It seems to be dead uh, within the clubhouse itself. It seemed to be a one-off. There's been some video talk I heard on the Phillies Talk podcast from the guys over at Spencer McKercher and the guys over at NBC Sports Philadelphia. They put out a podcast. They said that they did see some video where there seems to be a moment during the handshake line after Castellanos was taken out of the lineup. Monday night, he was taken out for defensive. If you have been under a rock and didn't watch the Miami series, Nick Castellanos was taken out of the game late Monday night for a defensive replacement, was benched on Tuesday as a result of a comment that he made that Rob Thompson felt was an inappropriate comment. That snapped a 236 game streak, 236 starts in a row for Nick Castellanos. The guy is all about streaks. I mean, he had over 400 games without an error, which could bring into question why are we taking this guy out? I know that he may not have the greatest range in the world, but when he's out there, he seems to be more focused than ever on defense. But one thing that I like that's been from the fall, so there was some issue, there was fallout, but nobody really went public with any issue or discussion or what was said. Rob Thompson made sure to keep it in-house, but he did mention that there was an inappropriate comment, and as a result, he had to sit. He addressed it outright. They don't always necessarily do that, but they usually don't have things happen in public. When it happens in public, I haven't seen any videos go viral about it, but obviously when something happens in public, whether it be on video or in front of other players and coaches, coach feels like he has to step up and do something about it, and he did just that. I don't think there's a problem with how that was handled. Nick Castellanos seems to be totally fine with how it was handled as well. And the great staff over at the Philadelphia Inquirer ran a story noting that Nick has, as a result of that conversation, there's been continued conversations about his defense. He feels he's playing very good on the defensive end. Maybe there's some StatCast items that would lend themselves to saying that he's not a great defender, at least when it comes to range. The eye test, I think that he's very similar to Pat Burrell and Bobby Abreu. If you were a fan of the team in the aughts, they might not get to everything, but anything that they can get to will be in the glove. They know their limitations. Nick knows his limitations. He spends so much time in the outfield, whether it's at home or on the road with Paco Figueroa, learning how things bounce off the wall. He's one of the hardest workers in that clubhouse. He's a guy that I think that they can trust to be putting the time and the work in. But Rob also reserves that right at any point if he feels like this is my best way to win and have the best defensive lineup out there. This is what I'm going to do. So this may not be the only time that we see this change. I would anticipate that we would see it a few more times the rest of the season. It didn't happen again when they had a small lead on Wednesday night or Thursday. Wednesday, he comes back in the lineup, of course, makes the game-ending catch, untucks the shirt, almost as a moment of defiance to any of the haters, not to Rob Thompson. All smiles from the two of them. Baseball is a beautiful game that way. Sometimes there's some frustration. Sometimes there's some frustration, and and you have to let it out a little bit. So Nick gets out there. The only thing that he's said about it since is, it's impossible to think that when you include spring training and hopefully the postseason, that competitive men will be around each other for 8 straight months and not bump heads every once in a while. Rob Thompson might be an affable man publicly, but from all reports, he is a competitor when it comes down to it. You're not in this game this long without being a competitor. As John Fisher writes again, Nick has been great defensively. I agree. I like everything that I've seen from him. Like I did the comparison to Bobby Abreu. Bobby Abreu won a Gold Glove, for Christ's sake. So, well, I don't know if that was earned necessarily with flashy play, but again, anything that he could get to, he did. Nick, he's admitted in the past that he's had trouble staying focused out in the outfield. But part of the things that he wants to do to improve himself is being focused all the time out there. And you can see in the way that he approaches the game beforehand and the way that he is locked in on some of these balls that maybe you wouldn't expect him to get, how focused he is in that field. So I'm not concerned about this being a long-term issue. I don't think the team is concerned about this being a long-term issue. Just wanted to make sure that I touched on that because that was basically the biggest news of the week. If you were getting excited for the stream today, you would have seen the thumbnail that my guy Matt Watson came up for us. Pause real quick. It was about Orion Kerkering and how good Orion Kerkering has been as of late. Kerkering got a chance to record a save earlier this week, his first save of his career. He has since recorded his second save of his career. That was in the finale against the Mets. So 2 saves in the past week against Miami, the Mets, against the Marlins, excuse me. He pitched 3 of those games against the Marlins, 2 saves, another strong outing. It's only been, what is it, in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. It's been 18 scoreless appearances in a row. The guy's let up 1 earned run since May 9th. He's been absolutely stellar. And I think a lot of people, when they saw the devastating breaking ball, that sweeper has been absolutely disgusting. You see, above 95, 97 consistently with the fastball. And of course, you're thinking, we found our closer of the future. Maybe he's not ready quite yet. That's what his role was the last few years, being that bridge to the back end. Last year being put in the mix a little bit more, and we're finally getting a taste of seeing him in the 9th inning. And again, he's been absolutely stellar as of late. Jordan Romano, although he's nowhere near as bad as he was early in the season, we all know the struggles that he went through early in April. He's been a reliable arm back there. Matt Strahm, also a reliable arm. Without Jose Alvarado, they've continued to piece together who is going to have what role in that bullpen. It likely would have been Alvarado and Romano to start the season as depending on the matchup in the 9th inning. Now, there's some questions about that, but Orion Kerkering has been absolutely disgusting as of late, and he has earned every opportunity that he has been given. So we'll see how that plays out as far as being the closer overall. Like I said, 18 straight scoreless appearances for Kerkering. He's been absolutely dealing. 1 earned run in the last 20 appearances. You can't really complain about that. Matt Strahm had an opportunity the other night, despite the lineup being all right-handed coming up into the 9th. Matt Strahm was deployed in the 9th instead of Kerkering, instead of Romano. One of the reasons that Thompson gave made sense. They could go Strahm in the 9th and then go Strahm Romano the next day, whereas if they had pitched Romano in the 9th, that would have been too many days in a row. They would have had to have sit him the next day. And Jesus Sanchez, one of the few power hitters on the Marlins roster, was available off the bench. So they wanted to put Strahm in there. He does well against both hands. You put him in there to give you the advantage and make sure that Sanchez does not find his way to the plate. It's going to be interesting to see how they continue to piece that bullpen together. I think that the big thing for me is going to be what moves do they make to add, and to see what Kerkering has done in the last, again, 2 months. He's looked like a guy who maybe you don't have to go top of the market shopping if you can partner Kerkering with another lefty to add into the mix, whether it's a dominant, a Paul Sewald type. I'm not saying that he's available, but Felix Bautista has been floated from the Orioles. There's a few arms that are going to be out there, but bullpen is a competitive market each season. They've paid some high prices in the past for bullpen pieces, whether it be Carlos Estevez last season, Gregory Soto in the past. Got Tanner Banks a couple years ago. So there's Ian Kennedy in the Michael Lorenzen trade. That was a big one for the Phillies. So they've added to the bullpen every year, and their needs will be based on who's pitching well at the time. Will they go top of the market and try and just get a certified closer, or is Orion moving into that role and they can get that second tier, maybe give up a little bit less when it comes to prospect capital in order to solidify the bullpen? But we know that they're going to need that either way. There's a lot of talk about what they're going to do with the surplus of pitching that they have. Will Mick Abel be in the rotation, or will he be a trade piece if he continues to pitch well? My perspective, I think that the Phillies need to keep Mick Abel in house. Obviously, there's a likelihood that Ranger Suarez does not return next season, with him this being the last year of team control. Jesus Luzardo, a lot of injury history there. He's already surpassed his innings total from last season, and we're seeing what's starting to happen these last few starts. So can he bounce back? And is he a viable starter? If not, who ends up? If everybody stays healthy after Aaron Nola returns, can one of these guys adjust to a bullpen role, and then you figure it out again when it comes to the rotation in the offseason? So they have a lot of question marks about the pitching staff overall and what that's going to look like. Um, Come September, October, and but that's going to be dictated by what they do at the deadline. Obviously, starting pitching is a need for almost every club. I keep going back to this, but on Starkville, Jason Stark's podcast a few weeks ago, he had the general manager of the Seattle Mariners on. The Mariners seem to be a team that every year has young starting pitchers coming up, and they don't trade them despite their every single season having a need for offensive additions. They don't trade from that pitching depth to add offense, and it hasn't necessarily worked in their favor. But the reason that their general manager gave is because everybody has pitching depth until you don't. Look at what the Dodgers have. They have multiple Cy Young Award winners on the shelf right now. They're slowly bringing Shohei Ohtani back, who's one of the better pitchers in the league. Now, granted, they have the money to spend. Not every team has that luxury. So while the Dodgers can go out and just buy another replacement, are the Phillies willing to do that? Can they do that at the same level that some of these other teams can? I don't think that that's necessarily something that they're going to be able to do. So trading from a place of strength right now, when that strength is the starting rotation, that can flip on a dime. Can you really afford to trade from your depth of starting pitching to potentially improve another area, whether that be offense or bullpen? Don't forget, everybody, you are listening live to Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network. Make sure you give us a follow at Philadelphia SN. I'm going to post the handle for our boy Sean Nestor, who will be in the booth tonight. Our guy Nasty Nestor. Sean Nestor, make sure you give him a follow on socials here. Sorry. There it is, Sean Nestor. Give him a follow. He'll be bringing all the action today and in Sunday's finale for the exciting series against the New York Mets. And if you need something to read as soon as you're done listening here, that piece that I talked about just dropped. Sean already has his preview for the weekend's action over at Philly Sports Network. We're going to be diving into that for a moment. And then I also did a little deep dive into the long-standing Phillies-Mets rivalry. So real quick, I'm going to take a quick drink. We're going to get ourselves ready for this Mets series preview. Gotta love it. Okay. Now, into this weekend's action against the New York Mets, the daunting rivalry that is the Phillies and Mets. Like I said, 3 games, all nationally televised, 2 teams going in 2 different directions at the moment, but 2 teams that are poised and ready to set themselves up for a run in October. Rob Thompson said he felt really good about what we did here in Miami after the 2-1 victory on Thursday. Now we've got to move on. We got to face a really good club, and we're going to be back in front of our fan base. A little bit of a weird layout for the Phillies. 2 series at home, 2 series on the road, back to Philly for the weekend before they hop. So they went Miami. They're coming back up to Philly for the weekend, and they're going right back down to Atlanta for a set against the Braves. Mets coming from Atlanta. So a little bit of a before they go back home. So a little bit of an odd layout when it comes to the schedule, but still, either way, two teams that are a little beat up. Sean really dove into that. Our guy Sean Nestor Like I said, give him a follow for this weekend's action. Um, New York recently lost a couple starters, which is going to play to Philly's advantage. Kodai Senga on a ball that was Pete Alonso fielded. He was going over to cover first base, threw it pretty high, um, and Senga landed awkwardly. He's on the shelf with a hamstring issue. Tyler McGill was just placed on the injured list. He's getting further evaluated, and we'll see what they look like. You know, they had to call up a guy this weekend. They have Blade Tidwell on the mound. Hasn't been super impressive so far in his major league looks. He did have one appearance already. He did have a start 3 2/3 innings for the Mets earlier this season. He will be towing the rubber for New York. His one game was at St. Louis back on May 4th. So not the first action that he's seen, but definitely not who they thought they were going to have. They thought they were going to have McGill, who's having a great series for them on the mound. Facing off against former Met Zach Wheeler, and that's exactly who the Phillies want on the mound to set the tone for this weekend. Should be a really exciting series. Yeah, Zach Wheeler started against the Mets back on April 23rd. The Phillies did get swept in that series, but Wheeler 6 strong innings, only 2 earned runs. And since that moment, Wheeler's pitched to a 2.13 ERA. So whether he took it personally, whether it's just getting warmed up for the season to start, he's looked incredibly strong since then. He's allowed 12 earned runs over those 8 starts, and 6 of those runs came in one game against the Braves. So he's been absolutely incredible. He's ranked 7th in baseball in strikeouts with 110. He's been absolutely wonderful. Blade Tidwell, like I said, he's at high prospect ranking, number 14 in the Mets organization per MLB.com, but hasn't looked great in his one appearance. Had a 4.76 ERA in AAA, but this season as well. Big moment on Saturday. Mick Abel, the young starter for the Phillies, he's been pitching great. Settled back down against the Marlins after having a little bit of a rough go in his start prior against the Cubs. He'll be opposed by Griffin Canning, another guy who I did not expect much from this Mets rotation. They go out and get Clay Holmes, Griffin Canning, Frankie Montas. They have a lot of I don't know how to describe a lot of like pick up, plug in and play type of guys. But whatever they're doing and whatever their focus is over there has been absolutely incredible. Mets have the best starter ERA in all of baseball at a 3.03, only a 3.7 WHIP. They've been incredible. So definitely something worth watching all season long. Is once they start to get healthy, what's that going to is that going to continue? You know, they've had a couple guys who have not really pitched as long as they would hope so far this season. Their bullpen is also really strong. That's part of the problem, right? Is that's how good they've been. Is not only is their starting rotation been dominant. One thing that the Phillies have done is take advantage of bullpens. Well, the Mets are not a bullpen that's easily taken advantage of. They have a 3.10 ERA of their own, only a 1.25 WHIP. Not much luck involved with a 3.48 FIP. So very close ERA and FIP numbers usually means that their results match their effort, right? That's usually what that means if you're not familiar with those two, comparing the two. Seeing those guys is obviously a problem. We know what Edwin Diaz can do, and for all rumors point to the Mets wanting to add to that bullpen because they know that they're going to get healthy, or at least assume they're going to get healthy in the rotation. We know how strong they are on the offensive end. Matt Vientos isn't even healthy at the moment. They have Pete Alonso. Juan Soto has really come on. We know all about Francisco Lindor. If you're a Phillies fan, you saw what he did in last season's National League Division Series. So obviously, a really strong lineup for the Mets. This is going to be a fun one. Zach Wheeler pitching against his former team. The the guys have done okay against him, pulling up just how Wheeler's done against the Mets in his career. He's held Pete Alonso in check pretty much. Alonso is 10 for 40, hitting 250 with 2 doubles, no home runs. So that's huge. If he can continue that trend, we all know what Alonso can do when he gets hot. You don't want to let him get hot. Lindor has 9 hits against him in 33 at bats, only 3 extra base hits, 1 home run, 1 triple, 1 double. Starling Marte hitting 280, a double and a triple, 7 for 25. McNeil, he's come on again. Um, Struggled against Wheeler in his career, but he's really come on again as of late, 7 for 33. Nimmo is hitting 265. As a team, they're hitting 255. One thing that's interesting is Juan Soto has 3 home runs off of Wheeler in his career. They've pitched against each other, playing in the same division for a very long time. 14 walks to 15, but overall only hitting 264. So the 418 on base percentage is obviously going to be a problem, a huge OPS as a result of the walks and the pop, but only a 264 batting average. So if he can avoid the home run from Juan Soto and take care of everybody else behind Soto, he should be able to get through that lineup pretty handily. Like I said, Mick Abel, just got called up, made 4 starts this season, has not pitched against the Mets as of yet. But really impressive so far. 20 and a third innings, 17 Ks over that time. He did allow 3 home runs so far in those 4 starts, but all 3 came in the start against the Cubs. So he's really limited the long ball of his 4 starts. One, he had 3 earned runs. The other is 1, 1, and 0. 2 of those starts, of course, were against Miami and Pittsburgh. So not necessarily showing you what he can do against top tier talent. Not to hate on Miami and Pittsburgh, but those rosters, those offenses are not anything close to what Toronto brought to the table, and he pitched well against them. Definitely not close to what the Mets are bringing to the table this weekend. So it'll be really interesting. This is basically going to be, to this point, the biggest start of his career. Not only the moment, not only the environment. It'll be at home against the rival Mets. It's going to be a huge game for the team. Obviously, that second game in a series is so important. You can either get the series win or avoid a series loss with that game. So it's going to be really important to see how he pitches in this environment. That's the thing that I'm actually most excited about this weekend is how does Mick Abel pitch against the Mets this weekend? If he can give you 5 solid innings, Zach Wheeler, he's going to give you 6 or 7, even if the game is a little out of hand. So if he can give you 5 solid innings, knowing that you have Luzardo on Sunday, we'll see how he goes. So they really need 7 out of Wheeler to set the tone, even if they end up losing in game 1, just so they can save that bullpen and really take advantage of the bullpen, take advantage of matchups as the game goes on. As the series goes on, as the weekend goes on. Abel, who knows how long he's going to go. He's gone 5 or 6 in each of his starts. Except for the game against Chicago, he only went 4. I think he started the 5th inning, but was taken out before recording it out. So 4 innings against the Cubs. He went 5 and a third against Toronto, 5 against Miami earlier this week, and 6 in his first start against Pittsburgh, going toe-to-toe with Paul Skeens, if you remember that start. Wonderful outing from Mick Abel, but we'll have to see how this weekend plays out. This is obviously the biggest test for him so far, so we'll see how the kid does with the pressure turned up a little bit at the major league level. Luzardo, he's a question mark for me. He's pitched really well. He's handled Alonso really well. He's handled Lindor well in limited experience against him. He's handled Nimmo well and Soto well. Some of the other guys who are a little more annoying, Marte and McNeil, have really hammered him hard. His average OPS against them is 708. So not a stellar number overall, but we know how quickly things can turn for this Mets lineup. Alonso, I don't care that he's 2 for 22 against Luzardo. If one catches too much of the zone like it has as of late, he can put one in the upper deck above Harry the K's. So we'll have to see how he looks on Sunday. That'll be really important. One thing about Luzardo, like I said, we know how good he was that first month and a half, really almost 2 months of the season for Luzardo. In the Cy Young conversation, of course, not a real conversation, but people were putting him, is he a viable option for the Cy Young? And then, of course, he has those back-to-back outings against Milwaukee and Toronto, allowing 20 earned runs across 2 starts, less than 6 innings, allowing 20 earned runs. So he bounced back a little bit against the Cubs, only 1 earned run across 6 innings there at home. He goes down to Miami pitching against his former club, and he allows 4 earned runs, a home run, only 4 walks versus 4 Ks. Um, didn't even get to 60% of his strikes. I think he threw 103 pitches, only 59 strikes. So just didn't have the control that you were used to in the early going. One thing that a lot of people have talked about, oh, we got Rangers pitched out of the bullpen before. We got to move him to the bullpen when everybody's ready, when Painter comes up and Nola's healthy, or we got to throw Abel in the pen. His stuff will tick up. Why not put Painter out there? Well, Abel's never pitched out of the bullpen. And do you want to change what he's done all season long? His confidence is riding at an all-time high. Changed his mindset in the offseason. Is that a guy that you really want to mess with what he's doing on the mound? I wouldn't want to. Ranger Suarez in a contract year, he and his agent, there's no way they're going to be willing to accept a bullpen move until maybe the postseason. I don't see that happening. Andrew Painter, they have come out and said straight up they do not want to throw him in the bullpen. They want him to continue to build up in his recovery from Tommy John. Whenever he's ready to join the Phillies, it will be in the rotation. Again, maybe a postseason move to the pen is warranted, but we'll have to see what that looks like at the time. When he comes up, he's going to be in that rotation. When Aaron Nola's healthy, he's going to be in the rotation. So Wheeler, he's not going anywhere. Nola, when he's back, he's not going anywhere. Abel, maybe he gets sent down to stay regular, but he's not going to be a bullpen piece. Ranger Suarez isn't going to be a bullpen piece. Well, that doesn't leave a lot of options. Taijuan Walker's already back there. I think a guy that would be really and Sanchez. I don't think they're going to put him back there. Sign him to a nice long extension. Maybe he's a guy because he's pitched in the bullpen before. They could tell him, hey, look, we need an extra arm out there. We lost out on some of the bidding at the trade deadline. 100% you're going to be in the rotation again next season, but let's see what we can do to help the team win. And I think that he would be a guy who would be more than willing to do that. He already has his contract. He knows that he has a guarantee beyond this season. Why not do what you can to help the team? Shout outs to Rafi Devers changing his mind after getting moved to San Francisco. But I think that a piece that would be interesting to look at for me would be what can Jesus Luzardo do out there, right? He's been a guy who's been limited in his innings the last few seasons because of injuries. Really good season for Miami a few years ago. Through 178 innings in 2023, obviously 66 last year. He's already passed that number. And his stuff has played up a little bit this season. I would like to see if they're in a position where they can't get a bullpen guy and they want to go 6-man or they don't want to go 6-man rather. Mick Abel gets sent down. Everybody's healthy before the trade deadline. They don't get that killer piece at in the bullpen. What else can they do to add there? I think Jesus Luzardo would be the perfect guy to put back there. You can still limit his innings, but his stuff will be able to play up again. He can really empty the tank every time he's out there. It'll be a small adjustment at first, just like it's been with Taijuan Walker. But I think that could be that should be somewhere that the Phillies look because to me, it's if you're worried about his innings and him getting tired and he's starting to lose it the longer he goes into games. Well, if he can be a 2-inning bridge for you, or a late inning guy with that nasty slider. If his stuff plays up at all, he'll be throwing in the high 90s, potentially pushing 100 miles an hour. That's a guy that I don't want to push him there now, but I think that would be the guy that if you're going to make a move and push another starter out to the pen, he's the guy that I think would make the most sense. And then you can work on building him up in the offseason, put him on a throwing program, and make sure that he's ready to be back in that rotation next season. He's under team control, so it wouldn't hurt him when it comes to contract negotiations. It wouldn't hurt him when it comes to free agent value in the offseason like it would a Ranger Suarez. And with how good Ranger's been pitching, do you really want to mess with that at all? He's looking just like he did at the beginning of last season, nice and poised. 1.17 ERA over his last 8 starts. So that's not something that I would want to mess with at all. We'll have to see what we'll have to see what they do. Obviously, the deadline is going to be the most important thing for the Phillies when it comes to figuring out their pitching situation. Before we get into how the Mets starters are doing and what we can expect from them this weekend, just as a reminder, make sure you are giving @Philadelphia SN a follow on Twitter, on Blue Sky. We have at Philly Sportsnet. We have it on the ticker at the bottom. Make sure you're giving me a follow. I'll be giving you Phillies content all season long. My piece today about the history of the Phillies, breaking down um, the matchups themselves, um, uh, as far as record is concerned, how they're doing there. Um, added, I broke down a little bit like who's worn both the blue and the red pinstripes over the years. Some big names in there. Did you know that Richie Ashburn finished his series in his career rather in New York? If you weren't aware, we have some nice things there, some big moments in the rivalry all time, and talk about kind of the recent history as both teams have found themselves in strong positions when it comes to record and the postseason these last few years. I like to define things from 2019 on because that is the Bryce Harper era. Even though they didn't break the postseason curse for a few years after he came, to me that was the beginning of. It was for our Star Wars fans out there. That was a new hope, right? You bring in a guy of his caliber, trade for JT Realmuto the same season. And then obviously they add some more big names along the way in Zach Wheeler, uh, re-signing Aaron Nola. You go out and get Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos to really cement yourself as a big player in the National League. So give me a shout over there, Philly Sports Network. Make sure you're following our guy Sean Nestor for all things. His name is on, or his handle rather, is on the screen at Sean Nestor. Give him a follow on X as well. Making sure that you follow him closely. He'll be in the booth twice this weekend. Our guy at C Babos writes. Chris Babos will have the Saturday game. He'll be down there repping Philly Sports Network. And like I said, don't forget to come back for Flipping the Birds at 6 o'clock tonight. Our guys from the Eagles team will be giving you everything from OTAs, talking about Jalix Hunt and will the Eagles do anything else on the defensive end. So make sure you come back here to Philly Sports Network's YouTube and Twitter for another live stream later tonight. Let's get into what the Mets are bringing to the table this weekend. I already mentioned Blade Tidwell. Not much really to talk about him. Not really well known. Right-handed pitcher. The Phillies do well against right-handed pitching with Bryce Harper out. It's been a little less excitement, but they've done well against right-handed pitchers. So we'll see how they do against Blade Tidwell. Will he be an exciting addition to the rivalry or just a footnote in a Phillies victory? The Saturday's game, obviously, Mick Abel. He'll be opposed by veteran right-hander Griffin Canning. Griffin Canning, kind of a surprise for me as far as really strong performers for the Mets this season. He was a guy who wasn't necessarily on the top of everybody's free agent whiteboard. He pitched to a 5.19 ERA last season, a 4.32 the year before, a 5.60 the year before. His best season was a 3.99 ERA and 11 starts in a COVID shortened season in 2020 for the Angels. When you think Angels, you don't think stellar starting pitching, unfortunately. So a little bit of a surprise to see how well he's done for the Mets this season. I haven't broken down. I will do a little bit of a deep dive to better understand why at some point these guys are pitching so well. But man, just who would have thought Griffin Canning would be out here 6-3, 3.80 ERA, maybe not lighting up anything, but that's heavily weighed by his last two starts against Washington, where he allowed 4, and Tampa Bay, where he allowed 6. So Griffin Canning, again, doing really well. I'm curious to see what his ERA was before those last 2 starts. I'll bring that to you in a moment. But taking a look at what Canning has done against this Phillies lineup, not a lot of experience because he pitched in the AL West for the entire roster against Canning. Alec Boehm 2 for 5, likely in just that one game earlier this season against the Phillies. 2 RBIs, both singles. Nick Castellanos 2 for 11, a double and a triple. So not stellar numbers there. Max Kepler 2 for 3. Not a lot of experience, right? Brandon Marsh has a RBI walk against him from earlier this season. JT Realmuto is 1 for 2. Rojas 1 for 3. Schwarber 2 for 5. Nobody has a home run off of Griffin Canning on this current Phillies roster. 2 for 5. Bryson Stott 1 for 5, Trey Turner. As a unit, they're hitting 333, so they should be able to get some guys on. It's just about getting that timely hit, something that has plagued this Phillies team all season long. Getting that timely hit obviously is important for a team that wants to win long term. So if they want to beat Griffin Canning this weekend, they're going to have to take advantage of getting guys on base. Canning, like I said, before those last 2 starts, because I didn't even realize that his ERA had jumped to 3.80. This is what I was talking about, how good he had been before those last 2 starts. He came off a stellar outing against the Dodgers, going 6 strong, only allowing 3 hits, no earned runs. His ERA was 2.90 after that start. And then those last 2 starts against Washington and Tampa Bay, he's jumped up a little bit. So can the Phillies continue that trend of Canning starting to lose it a little bit? We'll see. The whip jumped up a bit as well. So we'll have to see what he looks like come uh, uh, come Saturday, right? That's just going to be a veteran versus a rookie. We'll see what he looks like. To me, the more important thing is, what does Mick Abel look like? Win or lose, I think you're going to learn a lot about the chutzpah, if you will, of Mick Abel, how he reacts to either success in this environment or struggles in this environment in this type of game. Will be a lot. So this game is important, and how he responds to this game is going to be important to me. Mick Abel is my focus for the weekend. If there's one thing that I wanted to focus on as far as my understanding of how this team is going to look moving forward, it's hitting with runners in scoring position, as always, passing the baton as always. Can they get more action than a one-off 3-run shot from Bryson Stott? Can they get a little more excitement out of the offense with Bryce Harper down? They need to continue to roll, continue to pass the baton, fall in love with the team, as Topper likes to say. But for me, that's always been a thing, right? It's the thing that plagued them in the playoffs against the Mets last season. It's the thing that everybody was focused on coming into this year, is a change in approach, is getting on base and passing to the next guy. And the one thing that's really been missing is that one guy getting the big hit. But they've started to come around. Alec Boehm has been clutch as of late. Brandon Marsh is really hot as of late, and he's been putting together some good at bats. Still think they need to make an improvement in the outfield come the deadline, but Brandon Marsh is making that a tougher decision for sure. Yeah, and then David Peterson. David Peterson is really the bread and butter of this Mets starting rotation at the moment. We know that Kodai Senga is probably the best guy on that roster as far as stuff is concerned. But with Senga out, with Manaya out, with Frankie Montas out, David Peterson has really stepped up in a big way. 5-2, 2.60 ERA. Guy has just been nasty. He's finally looking like the pitcher that they hoped he would coming through their minor league system. Let's see just some of the things he's done recently. He pitched really well against the Phillies earlier this season, 5 1/3, only allowing 2 earned runs, only 2 strikeouts. So they were getting on base against him, but 12 ground ball outs. That can be a killer for teams. So they need to see what he can bring. Another comment from another John Fisher in the comments. Actually, I was just praising Griffin Canning, but look at these numbers. That's something that I overlooked. Taking a quick look at the game log, 17 Ks to 16 walks in his past 5 starts. Like I said, those last 2 starts especially really struggled. Griffin Canning struggled in those last 2 starts. Excuse me. It looks like that was a trend beforehand, maybe getting a little lucky. So Phillies hopefully continue that unlucky streak for Griffin Canning on Saturday. Great note from John there. Thanks for chiming in the comments. Another guy, like I said, David Peterson's just been really good for them this season, especially. He was really good last season as well. That kind of came out of nowhere, but as he got into what we consider to be the prime years, 2.90 ERA last season, 10-3, a 2.9 WAR. Really strong numbers from him, and he seems to be getting even better. He even has a complete game shutout on the year, not something that is very common in today's game. That was recently against Washington. Yeah, it's Washington, but still. 3 earned runs in 7 against Atlanta. They end up losing that game in extras on Tuesday night. Excuse me. Yeah, not much else to say. I mean, Peterson's been really good. Again, this is a guy who they had high hopes for a long time ago. Kind of mixed results. 2021, a 5.54 ERA, bounced back a little bit. to a 3.83, a 5.03 the next season, and then we know the 2.90 last season. 5-2 record. I know that record doesn't matter as much for starting pitchers, but when you have 5 wins, it means you're staying in games long enough to keeping your team in the game enough to get that result. So to me, Peterson's could potentially be a problem on Sunday. 256 they're hitting against him as a team with a 391 slug. So two of Alec Boehm's career home runs have come off of Peterson, which is exciting. Obviously, we talked earlier about a guy who maybe is lacking a little bit of pop despite his big frame and stature. 2 home runs off the left-hander for Boehm. Castellanos is hitting 415 at bats against Peterson. So a lot of guys performing well. Hell, even Buddy Kennedy and Rafael Marchand have a few hits, in 3 hits to combine in 5 at bats. Brandon Marsh is 2 for 3, and again, he's been hot. JT Realmuto struggled mightily against him, and Sunday oftentimes is his off day. We'll see. Maybe they want to keep him in there depending on what the series looks like. If they win the first 2 games, maybe he gets the day off and Marchand takes that game. Just trying to see if there's anybody else that stands out. No, 2 homers from Boehm, 1 from Marsh, which is really rare. He doesn't have a lot of success against left-handers, so for him to have a home run off Peterson in those 2 hits, that's a big deal. Stott is 0 for 3 against him. Trey Turner 4 for 22 against him, but he's been an absolute beast this season as far as offense. Again, maybe not as much pop, maybe not at home. We'll have to see what happens this weekend to see if he can really capitalize and get things going. Let's just take a look at where's his apologies, everyone. I lost a tweet. There was one thing I wanted to show about Turner. Where is it? Here we go. Trey Turner, National League ranks among shortstops. He's first in hits. He's first in batting average. He's first in on-base percentage. Second in OPS. Second in doubles. Second in doubles. Tied for first in triples. Second in stolen bases. Second in runs. The guy has been absolutely stellar this season. So I don't care what his history is against Peterson. I would expect him to stay hot and have a good weekend against the Mets. Not much more else to say other than I hope you're excited because I'm excited. I can't wait. I'm going to be tuned in all 3 games. Yes, you have to go to 3 different places to see it, but all 3 games this weekend, they should be the talk of Major League Baseball this weekend after an exciting rivalry series between the Dodgers and the Padres. During the week, we get weekend action. Phillies, Mets all weekend long. Zach Wheeler is going to kick things off for us tonight. Like I said, make sure you're following at Philadelphia SN, at Sean Nestor. Our guy will be in the booth tonight. Follow me here at Kyle Fisher 45, and I'll be bringing some heat all weekend long. Like I said, I posted the Mets Phillies history, really fun piece that I wanted to work on this morning, just to add to some of the excitement. Make sure you keep the traffic in mind this weekend. A lot of things going on. If you are going down to the ballpark early, give my guy Sean Brace and Luke Arcaney, give them a visit. They'll be streaming live from Xfinity Live, and make sure you come back here, Philly Sports Network's YouTube, every Friday at 2 p.m. for Alley Talk, and tonight Flipping the Birds if you want to get some Eagles action in before the start of tonight's Phillies game. Those guys will be carrying you for an hour from 6 to 7 right before the game, the first pitch from Zach Wheeler. So I just want to thank everybody who hopped in the comments. We love when everybody contributes. We have topics in our mind, but we love taking the conversation where you want it to go. So make sure that every time you tune in, you're jumping in those comments. We'll share and we'll have a nice back and forth. Not here for hate, here for fun, man. Sports are fun. So if you want to join the conversation, hop in. We'll have some fun with you next week on Alley Talk. Appreciate everybody watching. Appreciate everybody listening. Appreciate all the follows. And once again, this was Alley Talk on Philly Sports Network.